Is that okay for the next 20 minutes?
All right, so what are we doing here? 3 minutes
Yeah,
of
yeah,
just
3
like, hi,
minutes,
who
yes.
am I?
The
Yes.
top priority
Okay.
as mayor, importance of small
Yeah.
business. How can small businesses have the same representation voice as big business? And is Lakeland small business moving in the right direction?
Yes.
Next.
Next, keeping it short. Hi, okay, so I'm Saga Stevin. If you know anything about me or have ever heard me, you know my top priority is safety and safety for all. Dealing with, I have a tremendous respect for the police department, for the fire department, and of course utility workers, which is all safety and utilities for Lakeland. They have also endorsed me. I believe that any city, to attract any kind of business, families, anything, first and foremost needs to be safe, a safe place. So you want to go out and walk your dog at 9 at night and feel perfectly safe. As far as the business community here, oh my goodness, God bless all of you, because you have taken the steps up to move forward. You have all put in such effort and care so much about other people, which is great. I've been out talking to people in the streets, Crystal Lake area, Pear Street, things like that. Those people probably don't even know about you and what you do because their main concerns are more ground level. They're concerned about drugs, prostitution, homeless, and chickens. Who knew? There's a chicken problem here. You all should get together and do a chicken roundup there, and it would help them tremendously. The other thing is they're also very concerned for their kids and what their kids are going through in their homes. A lot of people here, my niece is a teacher at Wendell, and a lot of people don't have computers. A lot of people don't have access to electronic media, and that's a problem as well. So yes, we need small businesses. Yes, we need small businesses to grow, and the beauty about the small businesses where you're at, your arms reach to the underprivileged and your arms reach to those that have grown above you. And that's what I see is bringing everyone together. I absolutely believe in equal opportunity for all. That's what I'm all about. I don't really like the whole hyphen thing. That's me. I think that you all have such a fabulous opportunity and such an important role in this city because Lakeland is a very special place. We have, oh my goodness, we have 5 colleges here. We have so many really good opportunities. The Well is coming up, Catapult's coming up. Every business that you all do, you beautifying people, it's those little itty bitty things that you can take someone that is downtrodden and make them feel special. And that's what's really important for everybody across the board, not just in this neighborhood, this neighborhood, this neighborhood. And I think that's what's really important. So what I would like to do is very much stop putting people in boxes and bringing the community together in every way, shape, and form I can. There's a huge Hispanic community, and it's kind of like, oh, they stay away from the black community, this, that. And it's like, whatever we can do to bring people together, that's the kind of leadership that I would bring in. It may be a fresh new approach. Yes, I listen to everyone. I'm also very staunch in some of my beliefs. I'm very staunch in supporting the U.S. Constitution. I believe in equal opportunities for everyone. I believe in our God-given inalienable rights that everyone is created equal. I will fight tooth and nail for that. Anyone that comes in from anywhere that wants to disrupt or tear our community apart under the veil or guise of a social or racial injustice will meet a roadblock with me. I have no tolerance for that. I have tolerance for and will champion and grow the entire community, all of Lakeland. That's my heart. That's what I want to do. And I believe that kind of thing drips down from leadership. A mayor's job is to lead. And leadership takes courage. It takes courage to stand up with my convictions. It takes integrity. You have to know, you have to understand, you have to honor. And it takes accountability. My accountability is to the people of Lakeland. My accountability is to all the citizens of Lakeland, not special interest groups, not the Old Boys Network, not any of that, to you and everyone that you represent and reach out to. That's who I would be accountable to as your mayor. I plan on being very transparent with the budget, transparent with different projects going on. I've heard from different people, oh, well, that happened really quick. It seemed kind of sneaky. I don't want sneaky. Sometimes a lot of things are talked about and brought to the table to be voted on, and a lot of people that don't have all the communication, the electronic communication, are not privy to even knowing about different issues before they're voted on and they're passed. And that's like, oh my goodness, and they feel disenfranchised. And that's not really fair. So I will need help in reaching everyone. I've been going into the neighborhoods and talking in the neighborhoods. I go to the neighborhood associations. I will need your help as mayor to know who you know, meet who you know, be out there and be available and accessible. But that is my heart as mayor. I'm not here to be a dictator. I have gotten the strangest questions from I don't know where. I'm not here to be dictator. I want this, I want that. What I want Lakeland to be known as the safest city in America, where we welcome everyone. However, when you come into our community, it's not so you can come in here and beat us up and change us into what you want. It's so you come in here and honor our citizens and assimilate with our citizens and our culture. And we very much celebrate the Black. We celebrate the Hispanic. I would love to celebrate the Italian. We have a huge Vietnamese population. We have a huge, and Hispanic is Cuban and Puerto Rican and Guatemalan and Nicaraguan. We have such a wonderful, beautiful, diverse city, and it's really special and it's very unique. We are not Tampa, we are not St. Pete, we are not Sarasota, and we are not Orlando. And we have people moving here because of our values. That's what I want to champion, and that's what I look to do as mayor. So,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. We'll give you a hand for that.
and I hate to leave, but I do have a prior commitment that I've had. But I like if you don't mind, because you can have all the rest of the time.
Right.
I have like a few minutes for some questions if somebody
We have
wants to ask.
you to 15 after. Is that right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
All right.
yes.
We're gonna get no question right now. We're gonna
Okay.
get Bill conversation, then we'll Q&A.
And then, well, and maybe your questions that you
Yes.
have.
Okay, I'm Bill Mutz, and I have found it a privilege to serve as mayor. I will tell you from my perspective, being a public servant is the part I like about it. Campaigning is not. So beyond that, the highest value, without any doubt, for me personally is, and top priority is to honor everyone. It was when we ran originally. It's what I've done and worked to do for the past 4 years. It has really become the centerpiece of our commission in terms of the work that we have been done, and it comes from listening broadly to citizen input and then enacting the things that need to be changed as a result. That's a wonderful privilege from my perspective to have served with the commission that I serve with, because of the fact that we have made those changes take place. I think we have the highest unity in this city that we have had in the last, certainly since I've lived here in the last 26 years. And I really credit that to a community that came together when we had different issues to be able to address. I want you to know that infrastructure, public safety, all those things are a priority to us. We never sacrifice in any of those. That's why we have made our LPD pay the highest in Central Florida, and we have also lifted up our fire department in that regard, and we will continue to do that. To me, those things have to be in place for us to be able to have enjoyment on a daily basis. But the higher calling is to love unconditionally. The higher calling is to recognize that we have needs that are not met, and that there's chuckles in our lives and in our city that need to be addressed, and then to make sure that we do that. So when we accomplish that and we have that focus on, then it allows us to look at things. So let's just take small business as an example. You know, the majority of growth in the United States in business has come from small businesses, not large businesses. I spend the vast majority of my time on small businesses, and the vast majority of my time, and even on a consulting basis, with small businesses. And the reason for that is because they are in the entrepreneurial need, and I've had 45 years of business experience where I've done a lot of dumb things, and so I can try and help to avoid some of those along the way. The emphasis of next steps. That's why the well became a very, very important priority to us to be able to develop. The chamber has been, and I have been on the chamber board for many, many years, and why I've worked with LEDC to create the Catapult. 10 years ago, we visited a incubation center and really started the dream for Catapult, and then to see that come into fruition, to watch 122 businesses work out of there, to see businesses grow, and then grow other businesses even as their employees become motivated. So it's a business spawner. We're going to have that, and we're going to have the well, and we're going to have the chamber working much more closely together to keep a lot of that cross-pollination going on as we go along. One of the privileges we have enjoyed and that we kick off today is the National Day of Mentoring, is to launch a mentoring program. We spent almost 9 months on this launch that we've set up for today to match that date on the calendar. And the reason for that is we want organizations to grab citizen needs, mentoring older and younger, by the way, it goes both directions, and to be able to match those so that we have some continuity over multiple years of an individual with another individual. And so that gets kicked off at Lake Crago later this afternoon at 4:30. So small businesses are extremely important to us. Making sure we have small business places in the city is important, and making sure they're throughout the city is very, very important to us. How can small businesses have the same representative voice as big business? I actually spend probably 60 to 70% of my business representative time with small businesses as opposed to large businesses. Large businesses usually have an agenda. So our job as a city is to say, does this fit what we want for footprint? Does it fit what we want for jobs? And does their agenda work? And how can we make that happen on the large business side? Those negotiations, some of them are 2 to 3 years long before they ever transpire. And then when they come into place, it appears like that's been the gargantuan effort. It's really small businesses that we work to support and endorse. Worked with a constituent this morning on a Lakeland electric issue that they have in their business, and making sure we get that going. And I think some of the unity that we have coming in place as a city, some of the awareness that Lift Lakeland incorporates into its agenda, and certainly some of the efforts that we have with the well, with the chamber, with Bridge Local, with LEDC are all part of that, and we want to continue to see that grow. It's this kind of harmony that makes this a city that younger people come to that they used to leave from, and they go, this place is kicking, there's thriving going on here, and they can see the difference in what they can see compared to other places. And so I just want to continue that momentum and to continue the good work that we have been able to accomplish the last 4 years, and continue it into the next.
Well, thank you. I'm going to, thank you very much. Since we only have about 7 minutes, I would like for your question, after I have my first question, okay?
He beat you to the punch.
I got you covered. I'd like the focus to the Saga.
Saga.
Saga?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Depending
Saga.
upon your generation, it's either the saga of the Old West or the saga continues.
Okay. Yes.
I think you should run through your questions.
That's what I'm saying. We only have 6, 7 minutes. I'm choosing some questions that I have.
I'll just drive a little
Okay.
faster.
And we get right to the point so we can have more before you leave. And then, since he's going to be here after, we have more questions for him. One of the questions we have from our audience is financing. What Merritt mentioned about LEDC and the well and Catapult and Chamber of Commerce.
And Bridge.
But I want you to know, CLBDC is in the house today.
Of course.
Okay.
Of course.
And we've been around for almost 20 years. But what I would like to say is this. Financing businesses is one of the leading obstacles for growth and expansion of minority, women, and veteran-owned businesses. Could you commit now to work with our organization, the CFBDC, to create something like a microloan program for Lakeland businesses if you are elected as mayor?
Am I answering all these now? Okay.
And Dale, you can come in on that.
Yes, I love this city, and one of the things I love about it is there are so many really, really good opportunities for philanthropy here. I believe that if you go more through philanthropy than government, for a lot of those, you'll probably get a lot farther. I don't think it's government's job to fund this, fund this, fund this. Because when that happens, that's actually out of hard-earned taxpayer dollars. And I believe that if we go more through philanthropy, because there's a lot of extremely generous people here that would be more than willing to put up and have a fund, have something. And I think that's something that we could all come together with. Again, not just the Black community, the Hispanic, all the different communities come together and approach the philanthropy, approach the different people that have these enormous funds available. Because I've met a lot of very, very generous people. So again, I don't see that as a government job, because generally when you get something from the government, I could be wrong here, but there's usually strings attached and there's handcuffs to it. So handouts come with handcuffs. Hands up come with freedom.
One of the problems that we face is that philanthropists, we don't have that connection like you. For one,
Well, how about that?
Let me just say, we don't have that connection, and that's usually a problem within itself. Government, we pay taxes, and the benefit that we serve is benefiting the citizen. So it's very important. I think, Mayor, the ARP money that you received, the city received was $25 million.
23, right?
23 million, and I think the chambers got about 500,000 of that. And we're talking about microloan. We were talking about 5,000, 10,000 for these small businesses. That's what we're talking about when we're talking about microloans.
Right.
And that's one of the most important things that small businesses need, along with education, you know, and things of that sort.
And think how wonderful it would be if, because of my connections and who I know and what I know, and if as mayor, people are definitely gonna wanna be meeting with me even more, if I can say, okay, let's help the community. Let's start a entity, whatever it may be, where we have these microloans. I know that microloans, they're started all over the world, and they're fabulous and wonderful. And like I say, I believe that if the community comes together, look at what that's doing. That's pulling us together. You will meet people you wouldn't have the opportunity to meet, and have that come together so that we can put that on the table.
And once again, you know, LEDC, Lakeland Economic Development Center, basic job is to bring in corporations to the community, right? And I've been around as president for 7 years in this organization, and it's been an impossible task to have that nexus or that connection with those businesses, even have a meeting with them, you know. So it's very important, and I know the role they could play with small businesses if they would adopt that, you know.
And wouldn't it be wonderful, for instance, Amazon, we all know Amazon, right?
Sure.
We all know how much Amazon has come into Lakeland between the warehouses, the airport, everything else, right? What if part of the requirement for them coming in and taking over all that they have taken over, what if a requirement would have been, okay, how much are you going to give back to the community? Right? They're making a lot of money off of us. Their big thing is, oh, we're bringing in jobs. They're not giving anything to the community. If you want shirts for your softball team, you go to Publix. Publix is right there. Amazon, you can't even get through. Amazon came into our airport, and again, a lot of jobs there, granted, I'll give them that. But then there was the mom and pop that had the in-flight school that didn't get their contract renegotiated for their hangar because Amazon wanted it, so this mom and pop in-flight school had to close down their business. That's not fair to Lakeland citizens.
If I may, I'd like you to answer the question about the microloan, please.
Sure.
Those opportunities.
One of the things we want to do on an ongoing basis is increase the amount of minority loans with lower risk sensitivity than has been done historically, and doing that through the banks. We're working on that and getting very, very close to a program where this has taken longer than I had hoped to get done, getting very near a program that accomplishes that. And that's the way you do it locally, is because then you know local risk, local assessment, and we can work alongside in protecting some of those. We do awards for small business entrepreneurs and angel funding through the catapult side of being able to do that, and just had their award night the other night for funds for seeding their businesses. And we can continue to do that and want to continue to do that. It's just a matter of pushing on those expansions as we go along. With respect to scenarios like Amazon and the hangar, that was a lease renewal option, and the hangar area that they had to take over was, they had a lease option in another place, which they didn't exercise. That's their decision as a business. Certainly, we have to always balance the realities of opportunities and existing entities and assets, and how are we going to make those things grow. With respect to the ARPA funds, we are primarily using those for infrastructure needs, and 17 million of which is a sewer line that was plugged. And so it's a good thing that we have that actually available to do that. There's a portion of that that we can do in the next year. We can only do it one
Right,
part each year.
right,
And so
right,
we have some.
right.
Mayor, if I may, before Ms. Saga
Yes,
leaves,
we
let me
have
ask
2
one
minutes.
question.
No, let him finish his question,
Yeah.
please, Sam. I want to make sure that as a
Well, our
organization.
time is
Well, you know,
out.
the problem is that we really don't have enough time, and we expect more time, so we're really not getting what we expect to get out of this
It's
forum.
part of,
So we have to just kind
Well,
of do it like that.
Shoot it out.
go ahead.
Shoot it out.
Okay, my question is, what is your background, Ms. Saga, and how do you feel your background suits you for the very position of Lakeland?
Good question. Okay, my background, I'll be brief here. I have done videos on my business background. I've been an entrepreneur since I was a kid. I've had a lot of different jobs. I've been in everything from the film industry to the medical world. My latest job is as a lab specialist and PRP, platelet-rich plasma specialist. I've also, in the business world, I have done everything from create a product, and there's like years and years and years and lots of blood, sweat, and tears between I created a product all the way up to negotiate the sale with Johnson & Johnson. I was a semifinalist in the largest statewide business competition in America. What that competition was used for is basically to introduce entrepreneurs and to vet them for angels and investors. So I've done the whole gamut of being a small business owner as well as going in and working for and working with. My job as a lab specialist, I did all the lab work and negotiated deals with and all the processes to work with labs worldwide. So it's a unique combination of experience that I have that I bring to it, but I can see from all the different perspectives, from corporate down to startup.
Thank you.
Calvin,
Yes,
I'm sorry.
Ms. Saga,
Yes.
given your background, I'm born and raised here in Lakeland.
Uh-huh.
Lakeland
Did you
has a-
graduate Kathleen or Lakeland?
Lakeland High, don't do that.
Kathleen.
No
I
pun
graduated
intended.
Kathleen.
No pun intended. Anyway, Lakeland's a tough cookie. It's tough as the alligators that roam these lakes out here.
Yep.
And our demographic is that we have neighborhoods that have been hurt by economic impacts that really go far. Okay, when I first started out in business, I got a microloan from mid-Florida, about $1,800. I got it, I paid it back. And then I wanted to take that next step to structure my business to go to the next level, and I was turned down. So how do we navigate those waters between the microloans, the business, all these people in here that want to take that next step to the next level? And then I had to go get somebody that was reputable in the community to sign off my loan, Willis Speed or Mr. Don Williams. A lot of people don't have those contacts, so how do we migrate that into bringing those type of funds to the table to where all of these people in Lakeland that have the desire and the dreams to own their own businesses have that connection with these banks, that we can get those funds and utilize those to move these businesses to the next level?
Right, and that's an excellent question. When you were starting out, did anybody come in to help you as far as starting your business? You got your microloan, you say you worked hard to pay it back, right? So you had a record of working hard and paying it back.
Yes.
Okay, so you had a track record. I believe if everybody in here helps someone below them, someone above them will help them. That's the giving back thing. As far as bringing the microloans, working with banks, I know that I've done loans for people. I know my mom's done loans for people. I know a lot of people that help people out in a lot of ways. Again, I very much believe, and it's the same thing that I was a part of before, I very much believe in the philanthropy that is within the community. The more we help each other out, because it's not about, here, I'm gonna give you this hand up so you don't have to work as hard. No, you had to work hard. Everybody's gotta work hard. If you want, and that's the equal opportunity. That's the beauty. We have equal opportunity. Yes, people do need hand ups, but they don't need hand outs. And I think you all understand that.
Dr. Rivers, then we're,
Okay, the mayor mentioned something about cross-pollination. I agree with that. You mentioned something about hackers. I agree with that. I agree with those points. What I see though is, you have these bubbles, these cultural bubbles, these racial bubbles. The city itself is one big bubble. How do you get those bubbles merged? And what you have is there's a need for relationships.
Yes.
And you said these relationships create people who have the opportunities to do things for each other.
Right.
So it's a social thing. So how do we get people to get out of their bubbles and come together as a community and interact with each other so these relationships can be created, so these partnerships can be formed?
Very, very good question. I love that because I look at it, it's kind of like if you have a football team, you've got the running backs, you've got the offline, you've got all these different things, but they come together, they're part of a team. I think the more that people feel part of a team, as in we are in Team Lakeland, we need a common goal. Let's make Lakeland the safest city. Let's make Lakeland an all-American city. Let's make Lakeland a beacon that other cities look to. How did they do that? It's going to take time. It's not always going to be easy because there are very thick walls that are built up. And I believe a lot of those walls have been created through agitation, through social media, through what I refer to as echo chambers of what people are listening to. It's going to take a while to go through that. I'm not a quitter. Let's go through that. Let's have, instead of like a Spanish this, is that what, definitely celebrate your culture. Also, have a chili cook-off. Who doesn't like to make chili? I personally think that my mom makes the best collard greens anywhere. We need a collard green cook-off. I mean, you know, just different things that everyone can agree on to start. Find the point of agreement and grow out from there. Don't necessarily just go to where there's disagreement, and it's going to be a challenge.
Ms. Saga, one of our problems as a minority and minority businesses, if it hadn't been for government, we wouldn't sometimes be in play, you know, because they represent those who've been disenfranchised for historical reasons. And to build relationships, I have to get to know this man in this business, and sometimes you can't get to him. I'm not saying you personally, but if you own a big business, Amazon or your Publix or whoever these large businesses in, do they have an interest in helping you? And a lot of times, you know, I found out through LEDC, sometimes they just don't. And so that's a hard road to get by. And we're working on it. That's what we do, try to do here. This gentleman here, Cedric Joseph, was the director of the Office of Supply and Diversity. And he can speak, you can't use those old things. I think you have a thing where you involve minorities. Can you talk about that system of policy that you have that involve minorities to compete with others?
Oh, okay.
Not that you're on the spot.
No, not at all.
And this is one of the reasons why.
So in 20 plus years, I served as the director of supplier diversity, deputy director for the state of Florida, and then came here and became the director of Polk County Board of County Commissioners, and left about 2-3 years ago to open my own company. But in that time, I served to create relationships between governmental organizations and businesses that wanted to A, have governmental contracts, but two, B, grow their own companies. What you find is that women, minority, and veteran-owned companies don't necessarily have everything that they need to go out and compete with, you know, other companies that are well established or whatever the case may be. So what you find is they need those governmental resources to help initially grow their company so they can grow to compete. And what I mean by those resources are A, the contract, B, the access, and C, microlending. When those things are in place, you find that businesses grow quicker, faster, and in a more, you know, logical way, as opposed to I got to work a second job for 10 years, you know, and then your business becomes a hobby and not a success. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, what you're looking at is creating a relationship between government, the nonprofit organizations, as well as those corporations that are out there that supports the growth of business, period, point blank. It's not about, oh, socially I want to be this, socially I want, it's about, I want to grow the foundation in which businesses in my community become better.
Right.
Because the more you do that, the better off everybody is in that community.
Absolutely.
So creating that nexus, creating that relationships, creating whatever that looks like is what we are about on a regular basis. You know, I counted earlier, the 15 plus businesses that are on there, the 20 something businesses that you have sitting in here. That's what we're about, and we have relationships with the Latin businesses, Ana Rivera and her organizations, as well as Mr. Pena and LULAC and those organizations as well. But the whole point is to create the unified structure that the Latin businesses, that the Asian businesses, that the African American businesses, that all businesses, regardless, can come to. And if philanthropy plays a part in that, awesome, great, awesome. But it is not the answer. It is a part of the
Correct.
answer.
It is a part of, I know that there are opportunity zones. Are y'all familiar with opportunity zones?
Yes.
Okay, I know there are opportunity zones in Lakeland, and I know that some of them have structures on them, some don't. How wonderful would it be to do like an international market square or something? I'm just brainstorming, throwing stuff out there. There's not one definitive answer, one definitive right or wrong for anything. It has to start somewhere, and I believe that we can start that. So we can definitely look at different options, different things to help everybody, and again, unhyphenate if we can. It's gonna take a while. Change is not easy. A lot of people are very resistant to change. Somebody somewhere has to be the first one to step up. So,
Was it Calvin or Rico that had a question?
No, I just am quick. I've been in business for 20 years, and it's still really, as a black business owner, it's very hard for black businesses to even get funds and stuff from banks or people for philanthropists that you say. It's hard. And even if you got your stuff together, there's always something else that you gotta have. And so I think, and what Cedric was saying, I mean, he's been in this thing, and what Larry's saying, you know, they still make it hard for us. So we still gotta have that connection or have a resource or a source where we can go and not go through all those changes, even when you got cash flow and got a good business. Because you black and you sit there across from somebody and you trying to get that money from them, I'm just being real.
no, absolutely. And wouldn't it
You
be
don't get it.
wonderful? Wouldn't it be wonderful, and this may be a dream thing, this may be a magic wand thing, wouldn't it be wonderful if we did blind loans? If it was strictly based on merit, not on skin color, not on anything else, strictly on merit, just blind loans like blind bids. I get that that may be a pie in the sky thing, however, it's an option. Try it and see. If it doesn't work, you don't do it.
Well,
I don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
I've tried that, and that doesn't work.
Okay.
Once you got a zip code where you want that money to go, it kills it just like that.
Well,
When my daughter started her business, the bank turned us down. It just so happens I had just retired, and I used my retirement funds to get it going. Got it going, it's time for us to do a little bit more. The bank still turns us down.
yeah, I can't answer to that. I'm not a
Right,
bank.
it's no, you couldn't answer.
Right.
You're not there,
Right.
so.
I
There are, like
noticed-
I said, a lot of parts to the puzzle.
There's a lot of parts, and the
Right.
beauty is having the open discussions in the open. And that's why I would like to do basically town halls, like every quarter, let's do a huge town hall. Tell me who you want there, and I will do my best to bring them. You want access to the philanthropists, you want access to whatever, all you can do is invite, you can't force somebody to come. However, the opportunity, I think, should be there.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Calvin?
and then I kind of have to go.
Okay, one last one, please.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So I have a background as part of our company as a diversity, equity, and inclusion practitioner, because it's part of change management. Companies that are more diverse have a higher productivity, higher performance, and higher profits. And that's data, hard data. I'm originally from St. Pete, so coming from St. Pete.
Welcome to the crown jewel of Florida.
Come to St. Pete, to Lakeland, was a look, it's an adjustment. But one thing that I noticed that St. Pete did was create a culture that celebrated diversity, whether it was arts, LGBTQ. What are and I'm not talking about platitudes, what specific strategies do you have to cultivate a diverse, equitable, and fair community here in Lakeland? So one example to this, St. Pete did something called a community benefits agreement, where they required companies on major projects to give, I believe it was 30% of that to minorities. That was it was the first one ever in Florida, a very strategic plan that they had to engage in. So what strategies do you have to cultivate a diverse and inclusive and equitable community here in Lakeland? Because I know that you talk about hyphens and some of these other things, but I don't believe diversity is not causing people to assimilate.
Okay, and
That's not, let me finish.
Okay.
Diversity is not causing people to assimilate. Diversity is recognizing those unique differences and celebrating those and then lifting all of those up. So tell me, give me some really clear strategies on how are you going to cultivate a diverse and equitable and inclusive community here in Lakeland?
again, my thing is about equal, not necessarily equity. Equal opportunity for all. I believe to bring the community together, everybody needs equal footing and equal opportunity. If you start splitting things off, I think that's going to continue the divide.
I think you're underestimating how we get to where DE&I is such a big issue in these organizations. That requires effort.
I understand that.
And it means that some companies do sponsorship, so they require a minority to have a sponsor, and that sponsor gets them into the door. They serve as a representative because everybody is not on the same playing field. And I think what you're suggesting is that those relationships create that, and I think that data doesn't support that.
What I'm suggesting is, again, equal opportunity. I believe that everyone, no matter what ethnicity, sexual preference, color, religion, race, anything, I believe everyone has talents, has skills, has the wherewithal to learn, and I want to celebrate those who work hard and work for betterment of self. In doing that, again, that is equal opportunity. I don't want to say, well, you're this, so you can't that. You're this, so you can't that. No, everybody has the opportunity to grow, to learn, to work hard, and to be championed for that. I believe the less we divide, the more that will spread, and it will be based on you, your talents, your skills, your God-given talent. That is what should be championed. So that's it, you know.
I'm looking for strategy. I don't hear strategy. What's the strategy?
The strategy is to treat everybody equally. I mean, I don't want to put different people in different boxes because I think that's divisive, and I don't really think it's fair to either side. Again, it goes back to if we could have blind bidding, if we could have blind hiring, base it on those who work hard. Has anybody in here worked on a group project in school?
Yes.
You ever, okay. You know how you have that one on your group project? Is that fair to have that one just come along without the hard work? I mean, the rest of the people, they get kind of crabby at that one, and that's not really good either. So again, equal opportunity, equal playing field. It's going to take time for us to become blind, but that's back to Martin Luther King and what he was saying. So in any event, I do have to run. I hope, if anybody wants to text me or email me questions, I would be more than happy to answer them.
Ms. Saga, this is a mission statement about what CFTC is.
Okay.
There's a strategy in there, in that mission that we use to bring all these people together.
That would be
Excuse
great.
me a minute. Will you give them your contact information?
You want me to write it up here?
Okay.
Well, and then here.
Oh, yeah, she can get to me.
Well,
I can type it into the chat here, so.
Okay.
We
We
wanna-
put votesaga.com, we put your website on there.
Right, and you can contact me through there. You can do everything. All the information's on there.
Well, we're extending you for 20 extra minutes.
I know. I have to drive a little
I hope
fast.
this is very helpful to everyone.
Yes, and thank you all
And,
so much. This has been really helpful to me, and please do reach out because this is how I learn. This is how I get to know, so I can represent you.
Yeah,
I'd like to
Mayor, you're with us for the next hour.
I can do that.
I need to call
You guys might be bored, but I can.
Very much. Can I pose that same question?
Yes, answer some of those questions.
I'm kind of was looking for strategies, of course, in corporations, there's a strategy to create inclusive workplaces, to increase diversity, increase equity. So I was looking for specific strategies.
So about 8, maybe 10 years ago, Richard Florida came to our community unity lunch that the chamber put on and talked about the importance of cities having broad diversity in terms of not only race, but
Gender.
the whole 9 yards. And I remember sitting in that meeting, pushing back and thinking, this is, you know, he's going too hard, too strong on this early on, and being uncomfortable. So that was my uncomfortable moment that I can, you know, circle back to. The reality is that his economic growth and strength of the community is absolutely right. And so I would come from a background of saying that I lived pretty inclusively my whole life, but still that was a moment that I can relate to on pushback. The thing I have learned the most in the last 4 years as mayor is listening broadly, which is the irony of being, you know, supported at both ends of the spectrum in terms of some of the inclusion, but that's what it ought to look like. I mean, if we're nonpartisan, we ought to look like that. If you walk in a room anywhere, people know that they are heard and appreciated. So our strategies have to be, how do we grow that within company cultures? How do we do that within our universities in terms of the inclusion that we're doing, that's going on? How do we help equip our young entrepreneurs to recognize and think through this as they go along? And how do we then support it? And you take opportunities like unusual funding. I think primarily for municipalities to support local businesses is bad strategy, typically in terms of economics. For state level and for federal level program integrations, that's better because our funds are limited. So when you think about spending funds that we don't, that we create out of the taxpayer base, that needs to be as broadly universal as possible. But that also means you go to sectors of the city and say, what do our capital improvement projects look like here versus other areas of the city, and map them, which is one of the first things I did when I became mayor, was ask for that map to be done. We don't have that map, but we created a map, and the map had a gigantic void in it. And so one of the things you have to do is say, when our 10-year plan, what are we doing to change that? It is, you know, I'm a use our houses of faith to be able to provide programs whenever possible person. But on the other hand, I think about some of our elderly women, particularly in the black churches, that are doing programs at during the course of the week that are being supported by their churches a lot, and we have opportunities for that. But should we be spending some capital investment, for example, within the community that's better for a center that would work for a broader number of people? Not everybody necessarily wants to do that, but that's something to me that we need to be open to. Really, can a Coleman Bush become a much more robust place than Coleman Bush is today? The reason that actually becomes part of strategy, because strategy then involves the other people to be able to support that. I think Mike Cooper's done a great job with the Dream Center in terms of trying to help. His motivation is to try and help other churches to get involved in and come alongside pastors in the community, not to have it just be solving problems, you know, with a group of people that come along. So when we engage in that kind of, and that to me, Sherman, is the cross-pollination, when we engage in that kind of thing, that's what creates the desire for diversity relationally. Within businesses, we have done some proposals on bringing companies here that said we need to have X percentage be minority and watch them walk. So there's a practical matter in this. So the larger the company is, if we say, so we were trying to do an economic incentive that would have had 28% minorities, and they won't step up to that. And the reason they'll say that, and also is because we want it from the zip codes of our city, as we're taking a look at that within those zips. Well, they don't know how they're going to hire. They don't know how people are going to be equipped. They don't know how they're going to be trained. So they don't want to make a decision to say, I'm not going to be held. So you don't create a disincentive for them, but you might create a larger incentive for them that makes them want to move into that arena. And so some of that we're playing with a little bit as we talk about economic opportunity. CRA is specifically one of the ways that we're parsing out money. And I think Elise Drumgo is doing a great job of recognizing the best places to do that and monitoring that money, and we're trying very, very hard to do that well. And then as we grow and as we attract companies, we talk to the companies about our desire to see diversity within the companies that come here. And that and so part of what we do if we work to honor everyone, that's where we start. That becomes the culture of the city. Companies come to the city and hear that that's part of the culture. They see it as a fruit that's unusual, because I believe the biggest differentiation we can probably have in a 10-year period of time is that this can be a city that has inclusion well mastered. And that means we got a lot of hard work to do. That's why we have to do mentoring. That's why we have to have people involved in other people's lives to be able to see. That's what Courageous Community Conversations is about. And when Dr. McCree's created that as a program, it's a slow start. These kinds of things take work to be able to get done. But if we're going to be intentional about doing them, it is relationship at a time, as well as the ability to talk to companies as they're coming in. When you become known as a place for inclusion, you automatically are a city that has unity across the city. It was interesting last summer, following the George Floyd events, I was very much less concerned about the problems we would have here, because I believe we're a city that feels much broadly understood and heard. We had already moved a monument that was an onus for many of our citizens in the city for generations, and it was one of the things we didn't have to contend against. Those are demonstrable, hard, courage-based steps that you have to take in light of a lot of flack, and it is also why you don't do referendums on those things. If we do a referendum on everything, you don't need anybody to be your representatives, and a referendum is always going to represent public opinion. Popular opinion. A republic is designed to make sure it protects minority interests and does the things that need to be done because of an erosion of culture that we've allowed to occur and exist, and we don't want to be a part of that. So where those are identifiable opportunities for us, we take steps forward. And I couldn't do that on my own in the way that we're structured. I have to serve with a commission that can be influenced and led that way, which they are, and we have to continue that momentum. We are in it. We have that momentum. We have what a lot of people would long for in order to be able to recognize that we have citizens in this community that now feel heard, that haven't felt as heard for decades. And we want to continue that. And I don't think there's any reason for us to expect to do otherwise.
Thank you very much. What I like to do right now, I want to recognize anyone that's on Zoom. If you have a question at this time.
How are you going to manage that? They've been putting some questions in chat, but
Okay.
they don't come.
Chat.
I was trying to.
You can see the chat.
I would say that
Chat's probably the best.
there's a way to raise your hand if you
Raise your hand if you have a question.
Not through the chat.
Maybe read the questions through the chat.
That's one thing.
In the meantime, can I ask a question?
Sure, go ahead.
One thing I find interesting
Go
is
ahead.
that if you look at the school systems,
Yes.
you have well-integrated school systems. You have people of every race, together in school. And then what happens is, we talk about 20, 30 years, what happens is these kids graduate school, and often they go into these bubbles, these pre-existing bubbles. So you have people who are classmates from several different races, and you look at these people 10, 20 years later, and they only associate with people who are quote unquote more like them. So they've gone off into a bubble. I think if we look at that and we kind of analyze what causes that, then we know what we have to address, because it's the same thing that applies to the business world. It's just like being a black-owned business doesn't mean you only do business with black people.
And that you only have black people.
You're a business, there's an economy here, so you're supposed to be, everyone is your client, not just black people.
Right.
So what do you think encourages that? What is it that we can address specifically to kind of help?
I think we have to celebrate more the spice of our uniquenesses, and not try and make us all vanilla, but to recognize how fun it is to have the color in what we have that we represent and do differently. If you want to know what's most problematic to me personally on a Sunday morning, is that we're the most segregated on a Sunday morning of any time in the entire week. And to some degree, that's by choice. You know, it's because people understand our culture, they understand, you know, these are people that I hang with, and that's what we tend to do. So you can't orchestrate and say, okay, well now we're gonna make sure that we do that kind of mixing. It ought to happen naturally. We're celebrating the same God, we're celebrating with different fervor perhaps in terms of some of those environments, but we can do that on the secular basis in businesses and at work and be intentional about it. And where we are doing it well, I think people enjoy being in those workplaces. And it means that you look in a set of eyes that really appreciate you and are willing to understand what you're having to work through and go through, and not fight that, but recognize how we can come alongside. I don't like the lifting up personally, because to me it's not about lifting up anything. It is about us coming alongside and being able to share assets, resources, advice, and all those kinds of things that go along the way.
Two things that I think our audience may not realize. Two of the things we're doing here in Lakeland is and George, I'm going to come to you right after this, is the multicultural museum. I don't think you know about that. That's going on right now. Can you speak real quick about that?
Sure.
And then Bonnet Spring.
Culture and History Museum that we're creating is in Lakeland Library, and it is a dedicated changeable display set so that over time that we can kind of keep it fresh. But we didn't have anything that existed in the city or that we had helped to fund and start that really celebrated that well. And Dr. Doris Moore Bailey also was interested in maybe doing a second different one, which we talked about and looked at as well. We felt like if we take a facility like the city-owned library, we could keep our expenses low, get it done, and get it going. And we're raising money for it still. That'll open up, I think, March 15th, March 30th, right in that range, and it's going to be something that primarily shows our Black heritage originally. We might move some of that into Hispanic displays with time as we go along. We'll have that morphability with respect to it. When we talk about Bonnet Springs Park, one of the most fabulous realities that's going to take place as a result of Bonnet Springs Park is that we're going to be able to walk from Bonnet Springs Park to the other side of Lake Mirror, and that's going to be really the extension of our downtown. And that creates an avenue and a corridor to the northwest side, which continues to bridge people together. We have to work with CSX to get over the tracks. That's our biggest difficulty, you know, because they own the airspace without liability throughout America. And so getting over that is a big deal. But we want to make it walkable, rideable. And that's part of what makes, you know, this can sound like, oh yeah, walkable, rideable city's great. Everybody says that. That is part of what makes a downtown continue to thrive. It's part of what has people celebrate spending time together, because the downtown is everybody's living room. And so it should be a place that we have not only density that we grow intentionally and some nice facilities and multi-use spaces, but also where we have wonderful ability to cafe on streets, and we're creating that now. And I can't tell you how excited I am about this as we work on the Catalyst 2.0 footprint, because that's kind of the things we want to preserve. But meanwhile, we got to find places where there's expansions of businesses that need to be on an infill basis that makes sense. And how do we help those businesses grow? And it isn't ever any one thing. And I think our problems that allows us to polarize so much in life is we want one button, and there isn't one button. There's hundreds of buttons. And so which ones are the most important? Where can we have the most impact? How do we honor people the most? And if you start with that as the center point, which is a biblical center point, you know, it's a Judeo-Christian ethic. And so to me, it is, you know, pretty absorbable by people to recognize it's not just talking about it, it's doing it. That's how we get there.
George, Lyford.
All right, well, I'm going to be very quick. So first I wanted to address this whole thing about diversity, to let us move away from diversity meaning Black or Hispanic. That's not diversity. So let's move away from thinking that diversity is about being Black or being Hispanic. It's going right across the board, whether you're a woman-owned, whether you're a veteran, it's whether you're a youth. We're talking about diversity also in multi-generational, whether you're a millennial, whether you're Gen X. Diversity is not just Black and Hispanic. So let's just first agree to move our mindset from thinking that, as well as to move the mindset from thinking that we're looking for a handout, because that's not what we're looking for. either. So with that statement said, I'd like to just ask the mayor, and I wish Saga was here as well to address this, but Mayor, you have been faithful to us, and thank you for giving us more than 30 minutes of your time. So you're still here with us. You're still here. So let me not preach. Let me ask you a question straight. We are moving to a digital world. We are moving into a smarter world. We are becoming a metropolitan city. No, we're not Orlando, we're not Tampa. But once we move into the category of metropolitan, we can't think urban, we can't think country. So here's a question I have for you, sir, and that is, what are the strategies to move us into a smart city, digital transformation setting? What's the strategy you have for us?
So our goal to do, you need to know I'm a geek, okay? So I love gadgets and I love technology, and I've been that way since I was the 8th grade projectionist in my junior high school. And I believe in your statement on diversity 100%. So
Yes.
I'm parsing this for this conversation, but it is the whole picture. Technologically, the reason we wanted to bring in Summit for a broadband basis and not do it as a utility was so we didn't labyrinth ourselves with $100 million of additional exposure and expense that we would have had to pay as taxpayers in this city, dreaming that we might be able to produce revenue from it when there's no example of a city in the United States that has done that. And so we looked for a partner instead to do that, making certain that we grow the city smart in terms of the autonomous vehicle use. Enough bandwidth in your homes is on track. You could take 2 strands of fiber and light up all of Tigertown, for example. So it doesn't take a ton of fiber to do this, and there's 36 strands of fiber in any of this cable, and it runs at the speed of light. So on today's technology, we can't go any faster than that. But we want to make this, we were the first Wi-Fi city in the state of Florida. I was an impetus behind that early on when we did that as a city. We are going to continue to promote that, and being a technological city, we've added that as a strategy piece of our assistant city manager now in terms of responsibility, is this whole area of innovation. At some point in time, I think we'll probably add an innovation officer that actually takes and is working on that with all of our businesses as we go along, and the small businesses that want to be able to have input into that. And the Innovation Center out at the SunTrax and Florida Poly Center, the goal of that is to try and create a research center that helps us accelerate that and try it here. We're even piloting with a company that's based here now and in Winter Haven that uses your smartphones, if you subscribe to it, to be able to be the carrier. So part of the problem, so in other words, instead of using any fiber, instead of using any cable, it goes smartphone to smartphone to smartphone to smartphone, if you're willing and subscribe to it to be part of that process, so that we can use a network of users. Because what do you do in a crisis when you lose cell towers and when you lose some of the broadband coverage? How could you work through emergencies? And this is a way to do that even if there's not a network in place. It would connect through the smartphones that people would have available. And so that's another reason why, by the way, we didn't want to invest in the broadband project, because technology can change so dramatically that you may have invested in something that 10 years from now isn't even what we use, and it's obsolete. So we are attracting companies that, if we bring a warehouse, we're trying to attract technology-based warehouses. The more sophisticated a company can be in terms of IT utilization, we want to utilize that. We're very, very careful on the firewall side of this, because we know there's going to be increased intrusions and hackers, and Florida Southern College has started a college just for that purpose, as a result of that. So I think we are well postured. I was learning earlier today, or last week, about the fact that there's 550,000 college students within 100 miles of Orlando. 550,000 college students within 100 miles of Orlando. So we have a big piece of that. close to us. So to be a high-tech city that is relationally heavy in terms of inclusion, that provides diverse opportunities and companies, that's an attractive place to want to come to live. And that's the kind of thing that we can posture and grow ourselves towards as part of our vision. And technology is a huge piece of that, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before you jump on, Mr. Mayor, if you could just answer this one other question that I have for you, sir. That is, as far as it relates to seamlessness in communication, we're still using paper to communicate. And sometimes one department is not getting that information to the other department. So let's say a customer or an entrepreneur.
I just muted.
Got it. Okay.
We
Got it.
have,
we got
we
it.
have other people.
Go IT.
raising their hand.
Doug, and we have 2 minutes. This will
Doug.
be the, Doug,
So
Doug
Doug's
Brown,
next.
this will be the last question, right?
No, I'll be soft in my, short in my answer, sir.
Good morning, everybody. How you doing?
Good.
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to make a statement on behalf of the mayor. You know, virtue, morals, and faith are what you're looking for in the leadership, business, anything that you of that nature. I had a chance to meet with this young man that's sitting before us today, and he displayed all of those characteristics. And for him to take time out of his business schedule to meet with small business owners who have an idea and love and affection for the Lakeland area was a profound thing to have witnessed personally myself. And I just want to say that I feel comfortable with bringing new businesses to the Lakeland area, supporting this mayor as he runs for another term because of those attributes personally. So that's all I want to say.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you, South Carolina. Okay.
Latrice has her hand.
Latrice, Dr. Moore.
Yeah, Mayor Mutz, I have a question. I'm gonna bring it out from a county level and then to a city level. At the county level, I see a lot of influential people who are resistant to the change in the demographics and the growth of Polk County. It's almost kind of a visceral reaction that they are really resisting this change. If you are reelected as the mayor of our largest city, how do you find neutral ground to keep moving us forward with those who seek to kind of keep us where we are now?
So I think you do that by modeling. And I work regionally, and I work with many of the people that I think we're probably both thinking about. And it's disappointing to me as well. We aren't going to change, we can't change everybody's opinions, but what we can do is model a difference. And so to me, we have to keep our heads down to do what we can do locally and show how it works. And then as that is demonstrated, I think it gets infected across the entire county, and that's a positive thing. That's why we're taking a Lift Lakeland mentoring, and we eliminated the name Lakeland. We're making it Lift Mentoring, and that we'll announce later today. And the reason that we're doing that is we don't want it to be limited to Lakeland. We want it to be able to kind of virally just grow out to the county as necessary and organically be able to be mentoring programs that the other cities pick up. But we definitely are going to make the effort on a Lift Polk mentoring basis. It's just not called that.
Okay, with that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Moore. We had 2 other people come in, and we still got 2 minutes. I want you to introduce yourself and this gentleman introduce himself. Your name, business, and what problem you solve.
What problem do I solve?
Yes. Real quick.
All right, my name is Kim Perry Munn. I'm an event planner and a real estate investor. And what problem do I solve with it? Well, I help up and coming event planners start their own businesses.
You find homes for people, right?
I'm sorry.
You find homes for people as a realtor, right?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, that's a problem that you solve.
I do.
We need to have homes, right?
Yeah, my name is Eric Shaw, and I'm a mediator. I own Global Mediation Group, mediate all over the state of Florida and internationally.
Cool.
And the problem that I solve is I help people come to a mutual agreement.
Mutual agreement. I like that. You're a mediator.
That's an art. That's an art.
That's very good.
That's
Yeah.
what we need in Lakeland.
Let's make a pitch for membership.
Oh, go ahead.
Central Florida Business Diversity Council, you see what we do here, this is one of the many things that we do as an organization. We are asking those who are not members to join us. We find the membership fees very reasonable. For regular business, $150 a year. Do we go up there? Do we go up?
It's $150.
It's $150 for regular business, $300 for property.
Okay. So see either myself, Larry, or Cedric after this meeting to join.
And our website went down, it'll be back up tomorrow, so you can go online and register. So Mayor, Ms. Saga, you guys, we had a good comeback meeting here today, you know, and I thank Kate for helping us with the technical stuff.
Nice to be back in the room.
And our media people, Lakeland Now and the Ledger, you know, thank you for coming. And we look to see you in November, guys. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Good. Very good job.
Recording stopped.
So this is Barry Friedman. Thank you for joining us on our, on our live stream today. This is, I believe, the last mayor debate of the election. Voting day, election day is November 2nd. Early voting has already started. It's taking place at the Polk County Government Operations Center at 930 East Partner Street. We will be covering the elections election night, so join Lakeland Now then to see the results. Of course, there's two other races on the ballot, two city commission races and the two city amendments. Learn about all the candidates and the issues on the ballot on our voting guide. Look at the top of our homepage. There's a link, very the blue bar at the top, with a link to our voter guide. Thank you very much for joining us.
I think that I was waiting to say all that other